What would you do if the man you trusted most stood up from a wheelchair he was never supposed to leave? Rachel thought she knew Michael, thought their connection was real, but everything shattered the moment he walked through her classroom door. Literally, a man built on secrets, a woman built on truth. What happens when two very different worlds collide in one impossible love story? Stay with us, because what follows is not just a betrayal but a journey of redemption, heartbreak, and the question we all fear to ask. Can you ever truly forgive a beautiful lie? Why do you keep doing this, Michael? Aren't you tired of playing games with people's lives? Olivia Carter stood by the doorway, arms folded, watching her brother adjust his navy blue tie in the mirror. His expression was calm, deliberate, like a man about to step onto a stage rather than into a restaurant. "It's not a game," he replied. "It's a social experiment. I need to know who sees me for who I am, not for the Carter name or the bank balance behind it." She scoffed. "So, pretending to be in a wheelchair is your way of testing people's morality. That's not an experiment. That's manipulation." Michael didn't answer. He finished dressing and turned to the sleek black wheelchair waiting beside the door. He lowered himself into it with the ease of practice, because this wasn't the first time. It was the fifth. The previous 4 experiments, as he called them, had only reinforced his worst suspicions. When women realized he couldn't walk, their warmth often turned into awkward sympathy or sudden emotional distance. And once he revealed the truth, that he wasn't disabled and that he was in fact the billionaire CEO of Carter Developments, their reactions ranged from outrage to calculated interest. "This is the last time. I swear." Michael lied as much to himself as to his sister. The restaurant was called the Oak Room, an upscale but unpretentious place known for its ambience. Michael always arrived early, 15 minutes in advance, gave him time to observe, to study. The hostess guided him to a corner table, her professional smile masking the faint flicker of pity in her eyes. "Would you like assistance with your chair, sir?" "No," he replied curtly. "I'm fine." And he was fine. Except he wasn't, because despite the warmth of the lighting and the gentle hum of jazz in the background, Michael felt cold inside, detached. It was always like this, like he was watching life from behind a pane of glass. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He glanced at his Rolex, preparing himself for another no-show, or worse, another woman who would look past him and only see the chair. But then she walked in. She wasn't what he expected. Rachel Bennett wore a modest olive green dress, no flashy jewelry, no designer bag. Her dark hair was pulled into a practical bun. And when she smiled at the hostess, it was without pretense or performance. "Michael Carter?" she asked when she reached the table. "I'm Rachel. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on 7th was a nightmare." Michael stood, rather, tilted slightly forward to extend his hand, and smiled. "Just got here myself." Rachel took her seat naturally. No awkward glances at the chair. No uncomfortable silences, just presence. Their conversation flowed easily. Rachel talked about her students at Lincoln Public School, the challenges of teaching literature in an underfunded system, and her favorite books. She didn't ask about his wheelchair or his job, or try to guess his income bracket. It was as if the usual metrics didn't matter to her. When the dessert came, she asked gently, "Do you have family, a sister?" He answered cautiously, "Our parents passed away when we were younger." Rachel nodded. "I live with my mom. She's got arthritis, so I help take care of her. Lost my dad a few years back." Michael stared at her quietly, stunned. There was a simplicity to her life and honesty he didn't know how to handle. "You really love your job," he said softly, noticing how her face lit up when she spoke about her students. Rachel smiled. "It's not easy, but when a kid finally understands a metaphor or connects with a poem, it makes everything worth it." As they finished their drinks, Rachel reached for her purse. "Let's split the check." "No need," Michael replied quickly. "I invited you." "I'd prefer it this way," she said with a kind but firm smile. "You can pay next time, if there's a next time." For a man used to being in control of everything, those words shook something loose inside him. Because in all his previous tests, he was the one who decided whether there would be a second date. But now he hoped there'd be one. Outside, Rachel kissed him lightly on the cheek and said, "I had a lovely evening, Michael. I hope to hear from you." She didn't offer to help with the chair. She didn't look back with pity. She simply walked away and left Michael sitting in silence, crushed under a weight he hadn't expected, guilt. Back at his penthouse, Olivia was waiting. "Don't tell me you're texting her already." He didn't answer. "Michael," she snapped. This was supposed to be a one-time thing. Another trial run. You lied to her. He looked down at his phone. Rachel had replied. She wanted to meet for coffee later that week. It's different this time, he muttered. Different how? You still haven't told her the truth. Silence. What happens when she finds out? Olivia asked. Not just that you can walk, but that you're Michael Carter, billionaire real estate mogul, owner of half this damn city. I don't know, he whispered. But if I tell her now, she'll see me as a fraud. She already will, Olivia said coldly. You just haven't given her the chance yet. Michael's grip on the chair's wheels tightened. This was spiraling out of control, and for the first time, he wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. Rachel showed up at Cornerstone Cafe with her hair loose this time, wearing a soft blue sweater that brought out the color in her eyes. She had a worn paperback tucked under one arm. Michael watched her from the window before she noticed him, his heart beating harder than he wanted to admit. She looked peaceful, effortlessly beautiful and real. I brought you something, she said, placing the book on the table between them. The Great Gatsby creased. And annotated. You said you'd never read it. I figured that needed to change. Michael picked it up carefully. He wasn't used to gifts, especially not ones like this. They were usually designer pens or luxury watches from people trying to impress him. Not a weathered book with someone else's fingerprints of thought in the margins. Thank you, he murmured. I'll take good care of it. It's not a trophy, she laughed. It's meant to be read, not worshipped. The air between them felt warm and light. But in Michael's chest, a heaviness brewed. He wasn't just lying by omission anymore. He was building a second life on borrowed truths. And every moment he spent with Rachel made it harder to breathe under the weight of that lie. Over coffee, Rachel spoke about her students again. How she brought in her own books because the school library was falling apart. How she kept snacks in her desk drawer because some of the kids came to class hungry. How she watched their eyes light up when they connected with a poem for the first time. Michael wanted to ask about her dreams, about what she'd do if she didn't have to fight for every piece of dignity in a broken system. But he couldn't because his reality was the opposite. And the more she shared, the more he hated how far removed he truly was. You never talk about your job, Rachel noted, tilting her head. What do you do exactly, administration? He replied smoothly. For a mid-sized construction firm. Mostly paperwork and meetings. She nodded, accepting the lie. Do you like it? It pays the bills. She smiled. That's honest. It wasn't. Later, they walked through a nearby park, the leaves crunching beneath Rachel's boots. She pushed his chair without hesitation, without asking, just naturally. Michael had never let someone do that before. It felt intimate in a strange, terrifying way. I like being with you, he said suddenly. Rachel stopped. Why? He turned in his chair to look up at her. You're not trying to figure me out. You're not playing a part. You're just you. She looked at him curiously as if sensing the subtext, but not pushing further. Well, I like being with you too. That night, Olivia was waiting again. She didn't even wait for the front door to close before crossing her arms. You're falling for her. Michael poured a drink in silence. Seriously, you're falling for a woman who doesn't even know who you are. She knows who I am, he snapped. She just doesn't know what I have. That's a big part of who you are, Michael. He didn't argue because deep down he knew she was right. She doesn't deserve this, Olivia added quietly. She deserves the truth. He looked out over the glittering skyline. For the first time, his empire felt like a cage. The next day, Rachel called with a shy excitement in her voice. Hey, my students are organizing a small literary showcase on Friday. It's nothing fancy, just poems and short scenes, but they've worked really hard. Would you come? Michael didn't hesitate. I wouldn't miss it. He arrived at Lincoln Public School early and quietly, sitting in the back row so as not to attract attention. Rachel was running around backstage, calming nerves and fixing crooked ties. She hadn't seen him yet. When the lights dimmed and a girl stepped up to recite a poem by Maya Angelou, Michael found himself watching her more than the stage. Her eyes lit up with pride. Her hands clapped with sincerity. She wasn't just a teacher. She was their light. Later, during a performance of To Kill a Mockingbird, Rachel leaned over and whispered, "See that boy in the blue shirt? 6 months ago, he wouldn't speak in class. Now look at him." Michael felt something twist inside him. Guilt, longing, maybe both. After the show, as they sipped lukewarm coffee from plastic cups, a fellow teacher joined them. The conversation turned to a student who had been bullied recently. "He never told us," Rachel said, her voice cracking. "He thought no one would believe him." That kind of betrayal, it sticks. You break someone's trust like that, and it's almost impossible to get it back. Michael nearly dropped his cup. Rachel continued almost to herself. My grandma used to say, what hurts most is when someone you trust lies to you. She was right. He couldn't speak. The words caught in his throat like thorns. That night, after walking her home and watching her disappear behind a faded green door, Michael sat alone in his penthouse. The view, once comforting, now felt meaningless. I have to tell her, he whispered aloud. But the thought of her face when she found out who he really was, what he had done, froze him in place. He met her again for coffee 3 days later. She wore a yellow cardigan and brought a second book. This one's for your collection, she smiled. Michael barely heard her. The guilt was too loud now. Every laugh felt stolen. Every glance undeserved. But he couldn't speak. Not yet. Not today. So he smiled back, held the book in his hands, and wondered if she would still be there when he finally found the courage to let it all unravel. What do you think, viewers? Should Michael tell Rachel the truth, risking everything for honesty? Or is some love better left in the dark? Michael stood at the doorway of room 214, his palms sweating despite the crisp autumn air. Through the window, he could see Rachel inside, organizing books on a shelf, humming softly. She looked peaceful, unaware of the storm about to enter her world. He took one breath, then another, and stepped inside. She turned, her eyes locked on his legs, her breath hitched. The book she was holding slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. Michael, she whispered. I need to explain. You can walk. Her voice was flat, numb. I can. Rachel stared at him as if seeing a stranger. So everything was a lie. No, he said quickly. Not everything. It started that way. But you, Rachel, you changed everything. I didn't plan for you. She crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. Then what did you plan for? Michael swallowed. To find someone who cared about me for me. Not the wealth, not the name. I've been lied to. You betrayed. I wanted to know what it felt like to be seen without the noise. So you pretended to be disabled. I know how wrong that is. Now, he admitted it wasn't just dishonest. It was offensive to people who live with that reality every day. I thought I was testing others, but really I was hiding from myself. Rachel knelt to pick up the book, but didn't look at him. Do you have any idea how humiliating this feels? How it feels to realize that the man I opened up to was performing the whole time. I wasn't performing. Not with you. Not after the first night. She let out a bitter laugh. That's easy to say now. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said. I needed you to hear the truth from me. Not by accident, not from someone else. She looked up. Is that all? He hesitated. I'm not just Michael Carter. I'm Michael Carter, CEO of Carter Developments. I own half the skyline you see from your apartment, and I've never felt smaller in my life than I do right now. Rachel finally stood, her arms falling to her sides. Then go. He nodded slowly. Okay, but before I do, this is for you. He pulled a plain envelope from his jacket and left it on the desk. No checks, no apologies, just a letter. Read it if you want or don't. Then he walked out of her classroom and out of her life. Days passed, weeks. Rachel didn't reply to his messages, but she didn't throw the letter away either. She kept it in her bag, unopened, like a wound she wasn't ready to touch. Until one night she finally did. Inside was a raw confession. No excuses, no defenses, just truth. Michael wrote about his past, about how he had lost faith in people after his ex-fiancée abandoned him post-accident. About how every conversation with Rachel made him feel both seen and ashamed. About how her honesty inspired him to go to therapy, to finally begin becoming the kind of man who deserves someone like her. Rachel read it 3 times. Each time, her anger unraveled just a little more. Weeks later, as her students prepared for their final literature presentation, Rachel sent him a message, a simple one. You're welcome to come this Friday at 4 p.m. No expectations. Michael stared at it, breathless, then typed, I'll be there. And he was sitting quietly in the last row, watching her command the stage, glowing with pride as her students performed pieces about forgiveness and second chances. When it ended, Rachel approached him slowly. You came, she said softly. I said I would. They walked to a small cafe nearby. This time there was no awkward silence, only the kind of quiet between 2 people trying to rebuild something fragile. I read your letter, Rachel said finally. He nodded. It didn't excuse what you did, but I understand why you did it. He looked down. Thank you for saying that. She stirred her coffee. Do you know what I realized? We all hide, just in different ways. Some people hide behind wealth, others behind pride. I hide behind control, expecting perfection. So no one gets close enough to disappoint me. He met her eyes. So what happens now? I don't know, she said truthfully. But if you're still willing to be honest, we could find out together. Michael reached across the table and gently took her hand. It was warm, steady. I'd like that, he said. 3 months later, Michael quietly launched a foundation for public schools. Rachel's library got new books. The computers were upgraded. But he insisted her name be on the donation, not his. He didn't want applause. He wanted her to shine. On graduation day, as Rachel watched her students accept diplomas in a hall filled with flowers and proud families, she spotted Michael in the last row, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. They didn't rush into labels. There was no cinematic kiss, just a long embrace, a shared smile, and the quiet knowing that they were starting over, this time without lies. Later that night, on her balcony, as the city glowed beneath them, Rachel turned to him and asked, "Why me out of everyone?" He didn't hesitate. "Because when I was lost in my own story, you reminded me what it meant to be real." Dear viewers, how did this story make you feel? What part touched you the most? Would you forgive someone like Michael if they came clean with honesty? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If this story moved you even a little, comment 100 below to show your love and support. Tell us what country you're watching from. We'd love to know how far this story has traveled. And if you believe in stories of redemption, truth, and second chances, share this video with someone who might need it.